Have you ever noticed how color can completely change how a character or environment feels in a game? Let's talk about the power of color, hue, saturation, and value to totally change your perception and pick good color combinations. This week I started developing a new enemy and started working on the color palette. And what do I want you to feel when you encounter it? I will use this character and many of my game scenes to explain color theory after the intro. Welcome back. If you are new to the channel, I make games and you can download many of my games from the link in the description below. I talk about color, but before we started changing colors in game, we need to talk about color theory. Hue, saturation, and value can make you feel and see the game differently. But what is hue, saturation, and value? Hue is the color, the basic color, like red, green, or blue. Saturation is how intense or pure the color is. High saturation means bold and vibrant. Low saturation means muted and soft. Finally, value is the lightness or darkness of the color. Raise the value and it becomes brighter, more hopeful. Drop it down and it feels darker. Now that we know about these three parameters, we can pick any color. Anyone can pick colors, but not many can pick good ones. So in order to find how to pick good colors, we need to understand color harmony theory. There are certain color combinations that do look very good, while picking the wrong ones will make the game feel out of place, dull, or too colorful. It will make players quit your game or not understand it at all. So following color harmonies can make our work easier. So let's start with the most simplest one. Number 1 is monochromatic or single color. I pick oranges to make it look brownish, so it looks like made of terracotta, like the terracotta warriors. Simple as that, I can use this as background guards. That unique palette makes this enemy. There are quite few games that use just one color for the whole game, like Limbo. Well, it's mainly black and white, but this can be also just a zero saturation and change value to make it lighter or darker. The second one is analogous or adjacent colors. Let's explore a little bit this scene. The dojo, red, browns, and yellows. This scene is mostly composed of adjacent colors, feel natural and pleasant to the eye. Yellows are mainly used to highlight the floor and the mirror, where you can upgrade your character. There is a little bit of green, but it's almost nothing. Talking about the new sprite, the armored guard, I choose some gray, red, and pink. Gray is a desaturated version of pink, or red, so it still complements the color palette of this character. Third is Triadic. Forms a triangle on the wheel and pick colors that fall on each corner of the triangle, usually equally distant on the wheel. Adjust saturation and value to balance the primary color and the others. This looks pleasant and balanced. The first level scene colors do follow this triadic color palette, with red, oranges, violets and blues, and finally greens, balancing the overall scene. Few other scenes have stronger feel, like the orange and the character on the floor, so it catches your attention. But overall there is a balance that makes the scene feel together and pleasant to the eye. 4 is complementary or opposite colors, like oranges and blue violets, or pinks and greens. These combos have high contrast and are eye-catching. Want to make something to stand out? Use a complementary color, but do not try to make those two equally strong in value and saturation. The contrast can be too much and make the player confused on what to focus on. Desaturate or reduce the value of one so the player can focus on one side. A great example is this scene. In the bridge, main colors are a less saturated green and opposite a strong saturated pink. This will direct the player's eyesight into the pink flowers for some time, so it's not the main focus of this scene. I wanted the player to pay attention to the flowers to change the pace and focus of the game for a brief period of time and make the player wonder for a few seconds. 5th, split complementary by using 3 colors, a main color and 2 colors next to its opposite side. One example is this garden. Main colors are green, violet, and reds. Bushes and grass provide the greens, violets and blues with the floor and roof tiles, and the reds by the fire illumination. One item that goes out of the scene to grab the attention is the white walls, that show an additional path you can take. 6. Tetratic or double complementary, with 2 main colors and 2 opposite colors. This is quite difficult to balance and each one will be fighting for attention. so you need to change the value and saturation, so not all of them have equal values, otherwise the player will get lost. I try to avoid a little bit this, since can easily distract the player's focus. So far we covered 2 points. First is hue, saturation and value, and the second is color harmonies. But there is a third category that not many talk about, the meaning of certain material colors, and how those do affect our perception. For example, metal usually is gray or silver. For more advanced metals, sometimes a blue-gray is used. Yellowish golden colors for a more expensive feeling. Leather is usually brown, with warm reddish tones, muted darks. Wood is brown, yellow-brown, sometimes with greenish mossy tones. Stone is gray, beige, or mossy green. Glass usually is light blue or pale green. High brightness with sometimes white lines for reflections, and transparency in some areas. Fabric usually use softer colors, more saturated, matte, or low shine. Plastic is very saturated bright colors, often glossy. Magic or energy is represented with bright neon colors, usually glowing with cyan, purple, or pink. For this character I use a few variations with Monochromatic first, then Analogous for a more human type, and Triadic to make the composition of the armor more advanced and stronger. Colors can tell a lot about your game, and finding the right balance is quite easy if you follow the theory. Of course, you can make each item in your game follow the color theory, but when putting all of them together, it becomes a huge mess of bright colors everywhere without knowing where to focus on. So do not focus only in one thing, but focus on the overall color balance of the whole image if you want to make your game feel more pleasant and easier to the player's eyes. There is much more behind color theory. Colors can be used also to define characters' personality traits or communicate functions like red buttons or green buttons, saturation and value to separate the front layer and background. Usually background color should be less saturated. You can also use different tones to define seasons, along with temperature, for example blue colors for cold environments, while red colors for warm or hot. Emotion and tone can also be implied with desaturated colors to feel loneliness or despair, while more vivid or saturated colors for happy moments. There is much more to learn about color theory and how to pick good combinations, and how to convey ideas by using colors, but I hope this gives you a good idea on how to approach colors in your games. It's not that difficult. And that's it for this week. What do you think? Is there anything you would like to see in this kind of game? Let me know in the comments below, and even if you don't have anything to say, you can help me by writing colors in the comments below. That will help with the algorithm. If you want to support my work, please click like and subscribe, and click on the notification bell so you do not miss my next update. Thank you so much for watching my journey. See you next week.